Hello and welcome to the BNB show. My name is Brandon Kane, and this guy right here on my left, you know who that is. That's Seahawks Brendan Nelson back in the house here as we continue our draft coverage as we are almost a week in the way. Are you getting exciting, Brendan? Do you feel as your pulse raising a little bit here as we're getting on the precipice of the NFL draft?
Well, I'm alive. So, I have a pulse. That's really all it takes to get me excited for this part of the year because we got some picks. We've got an opportunity to get good players here. This isn't like 3 years ago when we had, 3 picks the whole draft. It's a different animal this time. So I'm ready to go.
That was an awful draft in recent memory, only having 3 picks, no first rounder. That just felt like you were the kid where all the kids got to bring their lunch from home, and mom made them this brilliant lunch and great sandwich, and they got the Cheetos, and they even got a little dessert, and you're over there just with just a sad little apple. That's all you guys, sad little apple, and they're all just eating the dessert first. It's kind of like that a little bit. But this year, we're the kid who's got the 4-course meal here at lunch a little bit. And today, Brendan, we're taking a look at cornerbacks, which, as you were talking with me on offline here before we just started, it's not necessarily a tremendous, exciting position for many Hawk fans out there and looking at this. And some maybe look at it and go, well, is it much of a need? But it is an exciting position for a couple of reasons from my perspective. Would love to hear if you're the same place on this. Number one, it's maybe not where some of the other positions like edge or maybe even tight end for where it's been historically as far as depth goes. But this is one of the deeper positions, I think, in the draft. And then isn't cornerback just an interesting position because of the requirements from within this defense and Mike McDonald?
Right. I think this cornerback class is pretty good. I think that it is one of the stronger classes. And I will say, I think almost every cornerback class these days is pretty good. That's a position that just kind of churns them out now because so many of these teams are so focused on throwing the ball that defenses have to really load up on that side of the ball to keep up. But more than that, I think that this defense leans very heavily on the abilities of the cornerbacks. And I know that we're not in a bad situation right now, but we've got 2 guys that are in the last year of their deals starting probably this year with Woolen and Joby. Both those guys are on tap to play significant roles in the defense right now. And they may only be here one more year. In fact, as of right now, I would suspect that both of them are playing their final year as Seahawks. So I'm thinking about the future. And I'm thinking about, again, I'm going to keep stressing this. I want the best players. I don't necessarily care that much if they're going to get on the field a ton initially. I don't care if they're going to be able to help us win right this very second. I want the best players so that we can be good down the line. That's what I'm mostly focusing on right now because that was kind of the decision this front office made earlier this offseason when they moved off some of their more well-known players and decided to cut costs a little bit at some of these spots. To me, that's a signal that, like, okay, I guess this is not really about 2025. This is about 2026 and beyond. So I'm thinking about it like that.
John Schneider's had and I know this a little bit more, not individual players, but just some stuff I want to pick your brain on a little bit. John's had an approach here with the cornerbacks, to your point on the churn aspect, and that you just have so many, and especially a glut seemingly in that 3rd to 4th round range where you have them evaluated at year in and year out. John's approach has been to this last year. I'll take some later round guys, day 3 guys. A couple years ago, you did the Kobe Bryant, Tariq Woolen. Also, those were day 3 situations that you were jumping upon. You've got the Shaquille Griffin deal back a couple years ago, late 3rd rounder. He has kind of stayed to what you're saying a little bit, being that, like, I don't really need to go up and get a cornerback early here. And some of this is the requirements of the Carroll defense and not needing the sort of requirements you have now. But he's kind of said, this is where I think the value is to go take a corner. So rather than go high, rather than jump, go here because this is where you're going to be able to go land that, start a really good player, and the value is right. Do you think that approach in this particular draft is the smart one to take in general terms, or to more because of the change of defense and the requirements, or back to your bottom line point you just made a second ago, just get the best player, that you would see John maybe deviate from that approach a little bit?
I mean, I think it would be fine to wait until the later rounds to go get a corner. But I also think there is a significant difference between the guys at the top of this draft and the guys more in the middle of this draft. I do think that if you have an opportunity, and maybe you don't have to force nothing, but if you have the opportunity to go get a real blue chipper, I don't think you should pass that up just because, I can get this guy who's kind of interesting in the 4th round. I don't think that's the philosophy this team should be following right now.
I think that's a fair enough approach. And again, this is a lot different requirements from a cornerback here in McDonald's scheme than what Carroll used to require, which is a lot of off coverage, cover 3 drops. You're going to stay in zone coverage a heavy amount of time. McDonald will run the man coverage concepts. He'll have you get up there and press. He's going to ask you to do some different things. So when we're looking at these corners here as we go through it, we're going to be leaning towards trying to find those guys that have some of that flexibility in their skill set to be able to do a variety of different things. Like Brendan just said, this system requires your cornerback to have to do a lot more necessarily than what Carroll's system would always ask them to do. And without further ado, let's start off with the first guy off our board here who is obviously not in play for us whatsoever and that he will be far off the board, but you never know if the Hawks might pick a particular year to trade up for a guy. That'd be a fun trade. You could do the 2 birds with 1 stone on this one. Maybe the most talented cornerback in this draft purely, and a 2-way player at that, Brendan. Travis Hunter. Is this guy a corner? Is this guy a receiver? Or is he both?
I think he's more of a corner for sure. I think he has special potential as a corner. I think he has decent potential as a receiver. I think he's all right on that front. But I think where he really shines through is corner. Apparently, he's saying he'd rather retire than not be able to play both. I don't know. I don't know how seriously to take him. But apparently, he says, you better play me at both. Which good luck with that, man. Good luck. Hope that works out for you.
Yeah, there's a reason nobody's really done this. It's not because people don't want to do it. It's because there's good reason for not doing it.
Yeah, it's a great attitude to take into the NFL when you're 21 years old, right?
It is. I mean, he's kind of getting a little bit obstinate about this, and I don't understand, why. He'll be allowed to play some of the other side of the ball, but he's going to have to stick full time within other side of the ball being some, and pick which way you want to flow with that.
So. Decent sized, a little undersized, maybe. He's like, 188. That's a little bit undersized, but I'm not too worried about it. He's got a really, really good cerebral understanding of routes and how to read routes, which you would expect that, right? He's a receiver. It's the same thing that we had with Woolen, right? Where Woolen was really good at reading receiver routes because he was a receiver himself. He's got a really good click and close. It's fast, it's smooth, it's reactive, and his ball skills are great. When the ball is put in the air, he acts like the ball's meant for him, which makes sense too, because he was a receiver. So I love that about Travis Hunter for sure. He doesn't have the longest arms in the world. I don't think his shed game is very good. I think bigger receivers will give him problems. He's long-legged, which I think interferes with his ability to be really reactive in movement, which is something you're looking for from a man cover guy. So I think he's mostly a zone cover corner. I'm not convinced he's going to be anything more than just a decent NFL receiver. But I think as long as you remember that, and as long as you're looking at him through the lens of he is a cornerback, I think you are dealing with a phenomenal zone corner talent. And I think that he is worthy of being a top 3 player in this draft. He isn't my number 1 player in this draft, but I did put him at number 2. I do think that receiver thing helps a little bit push him up, but I'm mostly thinking about him as a zone cover corner, and I think he'll be great.
Yeah, I'm not sure where I land exactly my final board of who my top exact guy was or not, partly just because we're not picking up there, so it's like you don't have to make the choice. But I actually am a little bit of a different on you as far as I think that this kid actually maybe has more of the upside to playing receiver and more of that being what he does best, because kind of for some of the reasons that you also just listed. Number one, the arms aren't greatly long. And then when it comes to him playing man coverage, there's a big difference between him up playing press man coverage than him playing off coverage and zone. So he is kind of, I think you'd agree, a little bit in the box there as far as you got to kind of keep him in zone. I don't really want him doing a ton of man-based stuff necessarily as far as how he rolls. And when I watch him as a receiver, I see a guy that doesn't seem like he spent a lot of time as a receiver. So he's very unrefined and rough around the edges. But if you gave him that time, I think full time, this is a guy that I think could become like a Garrett Wilson kind of receiver for you on the outside. It's just that he's really, I think, mainly concentrated on cornerback throughout his time. I know he's played both ways, but just feels like a guy that's got more of the background in playing corner. Agree with all the things you said as far as, reaction. I mean, it stands out. There's times with him on tape when he's running that zone coverage and off coverage, Brendan, where he can find an in-between spot between, let's say, the receiver that's behind him by 5 yards and the receiver that's in front of him by 5 yards and be able to play both routes. be able to basically take 2 routes and 1 away. And that's something that in McDonald's defense, when the corners are running right, that's what they do, is that they're able to run that in zone where they're taking basically 2 things away in 1. And that's why remember the whole thing with McDonald last year was it's like he's got 14 defenders on the field. So Hunter's that kind of guy in that way, but I do like a little bit more. I think the upside is for receiver. I think he's going to be a great corner, but your points on the fact of the man coverage, change of direction stuff. He's got to be to me off coverage and let him read it is kind of the way you got to let him play it.
Yeah. There is a little bit of a narrower use case here than I was thinking. And maybe the receiver stuff is true. Maybe with refinement, he could become a really special receiver. I don't know if I'd be taking this guy in the top 3 if I'm thinking about him as a receiver first, though. I think that would be kind of a little bit of a hard sell for me, because then I'd be like, well, I have to develop him and I have to hope that he develops properly.
That's true. There's going to be a little bit, this isn't going to be an easy one on this. And it's kind of funny. This is supposed to be like an easy evaluation because he gives you so much ability to play both sides of the ball. But is he purely great at either side of the ball, really, in what he's going to give you there? And that's the question that kind of hangs over him for me on this one. And he's a guy that I think you're right about. A lot of people loving his upside and being one of the 2 best players in this draft. But it just speaks to some of the troubling nature of the top of this draft that you just can't rubber stamp this one and go, well, there's no doubt about it, he's going to be a star on either side of the ball. Can you?
Yeah, I agree. That being said, if he somehow found his way down to 18, I would be pretty all over that. I would figure it out.
I'd find a way.
Where do you think he's going, by the way?
Oh, he's I think at this point it's the Giants based on what I'm hearing. Stuff's starting to come out a little bit clearer. There's still the dark horse factor. We're hearing that maybe the Giants are going to come in and with like 25th hour grab Shedeur Sanders, but it sounds like Hunter's going to be the guy that they're going to go to on this one based on what I was hearing. I was listening last night. Somebody was talking with some inside connections to it, and they were saying it sounds like Hunter. So Patriots are the team that seems to be a bit of the pivot team of there being some uncertainty with them because everybody's connecting them with Campbell, but it sounds like they're starting to maybe think about some other potential directions that they could go with that pick too, which sends everything up in a little bit of upheaval at that point.
It's got to be Abdul, though. He's so much better than Campbell as a prospect.
Well, that's what I'm kind of thinking too, especially if it comes down to the foot injury being clean, that you go, okay, from a Vrabel aspect, Vrabel is a linebacker that would rush the passer off the edge, something that you would think that he would give a lot of priority to. Tennessee tended to have a decent couple guys with that, but he's never had anything like this in Tennessee. And with Campbell, there's just so much just arguments going back and forth about this guy playing tackle or not. The guys that play tackle, they're like, he's got a weird stance. And then he's got to keep him at left tackle. You put him to guard, his stance has got to be completely changed. And then the other people come back and, well, the arm length. And man, that's the other part too, is I think this is also speaking to just a little bit of the unease you have with Campbell. This isn't Joe Alt last year. You're taking him in the same spot you took Joe Alt, and Joe Alt was a much cleaner prospect to know what you got. And so I think that this is part of why I say with this draft, Brian, I think we can come up right up to the last day of the draft. And in prior years, we'd be like, look, we got we know the first 13 guys going off the board. We don't know the order. I don't know that that's going to be the case this year necessarily. We might know like 5.
We might know like 1, honestly.
We might
know 1. It's, it was a lot easier when Urban Meyer was making out with Trevor Lawrence during his pro day, basically. Like we knew then. We knew what was up.
Oh, I know. He's like standing right in his face trying to kiss him before he passes. Like, you're so wonderful. You're just so amazing, Trevor. I love you.
And even a couple of years ago, like by the time we got to the draft, it was obviously Bryce Young, then CJ Stroud. We knew that. I don't even feel like we have that degree of clarity this year.
No, I mean, we kind of knew Carter was going to be landing on our lap at that point and whether or not we would take him. I mean, we knew down to that nth degree of it. So you're right. I don't think it's going to be that way this year. There's the thing that is working out nicely, I think, for Seattle's standpoint on this is having Miami kind of locked in at this point, having to take a tackle because of the Armstead situation. And then it's looking clearer and clearer. Like, to me, the Saints are probably going to go and do Jackson Dart. If they don't do Dart, they're at 9. Saints are a team that I'm hearing a lot of buzz about being a team to look to then trade back up. They've done it before, right? Remember the Trevor Penning thing where they gave up that stupid deal to the Eagles? So maybe Seattle is that team that goes, hey, we'll bop back to the second round, let you trade up and you give us a future first like you did with Philadelphia. I take that bet all day long on New Orleans if they do that.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have Spencer Rattler and Jackson Dart in a QB battle. I want their pick. Yeah, give me that.
With Kellen Moore as their head coach, as a first-time head coach. Yeah.
Yeah. That's money in the bank right there. You know, Olave is going to get hurt again.
You do. I would, if John can pull that off now, I would have him with the Saints being like, you guys want backup in here? Come on, just give us the first. We'll let you come back up. We'll bounce back. Hey, we'll even throw you a day 3 pick this year. What do you say?
You can have Sam Howell.
You can take Sam Howell too, just to reinforce it. Make sure you got some numbers games to throw at it. I'd go after all day if they do pass at that 9, but that's kind of what we're hearing. So this is starting, at least we don't know how the order is going to go, Brendan, but it is kind of setting up kind of nicely for Seattle.
Yeah, apparently the Panthers are looking to maybe trade back with a team that wants to get a quarterback and they want to snipe the Saints. That could come into play as well. So imagine if a team trades up to 8, they take Dart, and then the Saints take like Tyler Shock or something. Imagine that.
Or Shador, because that's a dome and that's a spot with Shador that would fit, and his skill set would fit to the more offense.
If Shador doesn't go to Cleveland.
Right. And that's why I've been saying, and I pushed for a while on this, Brendan, saying like, I think 3 quarterbacks go ahead of our pick. I think that's the way this is going to play out. Don't know which guys are going to grab where, but I think that's definitely going to get locked in. And that's just that much more of a benefit to us. The more QBs that can be taken, the better player that lands in our lap, when we come around to select. So, all right, we'll keep it moving on here to a guy who could land in Seattle's lap because of some different situations going on with him in his final year of college. And this is a guy that is guys some people love, some people are just out on with that final year of college. Did not test with a 40 time here, Brendan, going out on his pro day, just did some very select things that had people worried because there was reports that maybe he was running like a 4.58 40 in private workouts, and that's why he didn't want to run the 40. But Will Johnson's tape is pretty nice, especially when you turn on 2023.
Yeah, I'm a fan. I'm a big Will Johnson guy. I think that he might be like a top 6 player in this draft still. I'm still a big fan. I'm a little worried about the arm length. The arm length is a little alarming. That's the real concern that I have here. 30 and an 1/8 is not what you want from your boundary corner. But he's got good size, phenomenal instincts. His ability to read routes and read plays is great. He's constantly putting himself in position for takeaways. He's constantly just finding a way to get to the ball. He's a hard hitter. He moves well in space. This is not just a straight line athlete, and that's the thing I think people need to understand. Maybe he's not super fast in a straight line, but I think he's a good mover in space. He's got the reactive athleticism. He's also proven to be good in press in college. I don't know if that's going to translate because his arms are so short. And I think he has upside as being a man corner as well as being the zone corner that he was in college. I'm not that worried about the 2024. I think it was pretty clear he got hurt and was trying to play through it for a while, and things didn't go that well. But, I think he was trying to gut it out. What I am maybe worried about would be he's a little over aggressive. I think it leads to some mistakes. Sometimes he bites a little too hard on stuff, can get caught out of position. Not a stellar tackler, partially because I think he's over aggressive. He doesn't have top tier speed, admittedly, but you look at some of the tape and he's like doing chase down plays on players who we know are reasonably fast. So I don't think that that's something that's really holding him back that much on the football field. And I don't think he attacks the run very hard. But that's something that can maybe be taught. He's still pretty young. So the main alarm that I have is the arm length. That's something that makes me go, how is this going to work at the NFL level? But I think he's going to be great. I think he's going to be a great zone corner with those instincts. I think that his size is going to help him overcome the arm length issue. I would take him pretty happily in the top 8 if I needed to. And if he's there at 18, I'm reacting like those kids in the theater in the Minecraft movie.
You're tossing your popcorn everywhere and screaming.
Yeah.
All right. Do you move up for him for a late 3rd round pick to 11 if he drops there?
Well, 11's the Niners. They're not going to trade up.
Just in that, but I mean in that general in that territory.
I think so. I'm a fan. I think he's special.
Yeah, I feel very similarly on this in that I don't get caught up too much on the 2024 tape. He was injured. That's going to reduce him down as a player a little bit. And I think that if you do that, you're not getting the right outlook of a player. Is the player going to be injured in the future? Is that what we're expecting with him? No, he's going to be back to his full health by to what he was in 2023. And his ability in off coverage to be reactionary and just his transitions out of his break to jump routes and run the route sometimes better than the receiver does in that off coverage and zone is as good as anybody in this draft. And I do have a little bit of hesitancy with him on some of the man stuff. If you want him to do that, he can do press and zone. But I think if you had him press man, I think you could maybe at times see him get a little bit limited by the speed on that side of it. But overall, I don't think it's going to hold him back from being a really great player in this league. Patrick Surtain was my comp. Now, Patrick Surtain ran like a 4.46 at his pro day, had a little bit longer arms. So he's not going to get to the place where Patrick Surtain got to as a player with some of the limitations that is on the table here. But he's not far off of Patrick Surtain either. I like to say, 91% of Patrick Surtain. And now I do some of these comps, and that's what I would do with Will Johnson. I think he's going to be a real good player and played in our literal defense out there at Michigan. So walks in day one knowing exactly what time it is and what he's got to do.
He wasn't at Michigan when McDonald was there as the DC, right? I don't think there was that overlap, right?
Well, Wink Martindale is still the defense. Remember what McDonald did is he went in there and he changed the defense over, but he trained the staff at the same point in time.
Right, so, but I'm just saying there wasn't like direct physical overlap with McDonald and Johnson, right? I was wondering.
No, I don't think so. No,
I don't think so. But I do believe that he would be an excellent fit.
Yeah, he'd be a great fit, and I would probably be able to be willing to move up too because I think that fit's so true, and I think he's going to be that good of a player, man. I got a blue chip grade, so if you can move up for a blue chipper at 11, 10, wherever in that spot, then go ahead and do it. Especially if you trust your evaluation this much.
Yeah, and if these teams want to let him slip to 18, that's really exciting to me. That's something that'll get me going.
I was running my mock last night and going through these teams that we're talking about and what we're hearing they're going to pick. You mentioned Carolina. They're supposedly kind of circling in around Walker of Georgia, that's the guy that they're kind of locking into. And in my scenario, it was very, very much it played out to where he dipped down and dropped down. There's only a couple teams in there where you're just not sure if they would be the team to jump or not. Carolina, for instance, if they don't go Walker, I think very likely could go outside corner there. But then you even have a guy like the next guy we're going to talk about here who could be where some teams have this guy even ahead of Will Johnson because of that poor 2023 showing. And that's, of course, the kid out of Texas, Jahdae Barron. And that's the part that could make this interesting too, is if that goes, then if he does go ahead of you, I think that does really increase the chances to like the 80th percentile, 80 percentage. Well, I can't say the word, but you know what I'm trying to say, where I think that does then open that door to being likely that Will Johnson comes to you at 18 at that point, if this kid does go. What do you think about our guy, Jahdae Barron?
Well, I remember being really intrigued by him when the season first started, when he was like going in the 5th round on most big boards. And now I'm annoyed because I discovered him before it was cool. And now everybody thinks he's like the greatest thing ever. So it was a lot more fun when it looked like you could get him late day 3. It was a lot more fun. I'll say that. But no, he does deserve it. I think he deserves to be elevated to this point. The aggregate has him 17th right now. Got pretty good size, 194, 5'11", really, really short arms though, sub 30. So I do think that he is a slot corner for the most part, but he's not just a slot corner. I think he can also play a little bit of safety. I think Texas was even playing him at linebacker a little bit on passing downs. I don't know if you could do that in the NFL, but it does speak to his versatility. He tested pretty well overall. Lot of ball production last year, 5 interceptions. He does get targeted a lot, but I think a part of that is just because Texas, they're always ahead, so teams are always throwing the ball on him. So he's got the size that when he's in the slot, he's going to be able to really just swallow up most of these smaller slot guys. He reads and reacts really well. He's got good instincts. He's got good understanding of how to diagnose plays, sticky in man coverage, capable of moving with a guy in man coverage. Very, very competitive when the ball is up for grabs. He's great at the catch point, and he's also a fundamentally sound tackler. I feel like he's going to get a lot of flags in the NFL. I think he's going to get flagged a lot the way that he plays. I think he'll be a little bit susceptible to like the Remember the old Doug Baldwin from the slot route? Just run to the corner of the end zone. What do they call that? The
skinny
slot
fade.
Yeah, skinny fade. I think that could be a bit of a problem for him. His arm length will be an issue, sub 30 inches. So he's a lot of fun. I feel like teams got maybe they're a little bit ahead of themselves on this one. Like, I don't know if people are looking at this guy and thinking he can play on the outside. I really don't think he can. But I do think he's a first-round pick. I'd rather get past 20 before I take him, I think. I just don't know about taking a guy that I don't think is going to be a very good boundary cornerback in the in the top 20.
Yeah, I feel very similarly on this one, and that he is a slot. And what's weird about him is that you look at him even from a PFF rating standpoint, and was solid throughout his career, being in the slot up until this season. Then he transitions to outside corner this year, and his PFF grade actually goes up. But I still came away going, yeah, but he needs to play in the slot. It's not going to work to me on the outside with him. He overcomes a lot of the lack of length on the outside in the diagnosing that you talked about. I see that on tape with him too, where he just anticipates where the routes are going and knows where they're going to be. And he gets himself into the right spot by doing that. But I think you're right about the grabbiness. And I think especially when he kicked to the outside, his grabby factor went kind of through the roof. And partly I think is just that he knows he's got to stay so tight with those guys because of that lack of arm length that it gets him grabbing. It gets him kind of panicking out there a little bit. He's a really good tackler, and there's definitely echoes to Devin Witherspoon's game. You talk about him going, why is he going up so high in the draft? I think it's the same reason you see a guy like Travion Henderson go so high up in the draft. It's because guys that have been recently successful at this position coming out in recent drafts are just going to drive these guys up in that way. And a guy, the kid out in Detroit and what he's been able to do as well, similar kind of player, even though he's more of a safety, but can do the slot stuff, can be like go to safety sometimes, can just be used all over the place a little bit. I think some teams going to get caught up in that. And the thing that separates him a little bit, maybe even more so than Hunter and Johnson in this first round, Brendan, he can do kind of both man and zone, where those other two guys we just talked about are really guys that probably need to be spending a majority of their time in zone coverage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he could be okay in man. I think that his movement skills are going to be able to hack it there. But yeah, I just, on a fundamental level, if you know that a guy is only going to be able to play slot, like let's say Barron, he's not going to be able to do linebacker stuff in the NFL. I don't think even on passing downs, that's probably a little much. If he's not going to be able to do safety stuff, if he's just a slot corner, could you really justify taking him in the top 20? I feel like the answer is no.
I think you can because of the recent, I think if it was 8 years ago, yes, you're right. I think that where the game is at currently and where it's heading, I think the answer is yes, you can. Because this is where now we're seeing slot wide receivers go in the first round. We're going to see probably 2 slot receivers. Hell, Brendan, we might see 2 slot receivers go before the 2 outside receivers in this draft, showing you how much that position has risen up as far as the value goes. We ourselves took a guy in the 20th in the first round a couple of years ago. So I think that with the value of slots going up, the value of slot cornerbacks also go up with it. And that's a guy to where people will at least talk themselves into, okay, if a team goes into base, they're going to run I formation. We can have him on the outside for a smattering of plays here and there. He doesn't have to come off the field like some slots would have to. And that's what probably sells teams enough on to grab him that they don't have to do that. But this is why I think he's driven up here. We're both on the same place on this, which is that, look, I'd much rather in the later first round, but I just think that the NFL is going to push this gap because of a weaker first round and because of the recent positional impact it's had on the game, getting good ones.
Right. I agree. So I like him, but I think teams are a little ahead of themselves here.
Yeah, I do as well. I'm a first round guy, but a late first round guy, and a guy again that he's going to play like 94% of his snaps from the slot at the next level. That's just the way that's going to roll. All right, another guy that's really talented in this draft, but's got some questions, which has dinged him down for me into more of the second round range of things. But another guy with better tape in 23 than he had in 24 too. And so some questions here on this guy. Benjamin Morrison of Notre Dame.
Right. Okay. Benjamin Morrison. All right. So good size, short arms, kind of short arms though, 30 3/8. Man, a lot of these corners didn't run into comp. like again, man, it keeps coming up. That complaint keeps coming up. And by the way, I'm not thrilled with all these corners not doing anything at the combine. That's not okay. I'm not thrilled.
It's luckily we got that GPS data now, Brendan, because these guys are testing less and less and less and less than ever before.
Mm-hmm. Let's see here. Anyway, so last year didn't get how much time did he miss last year? He missed like pretty significant amount of time, didn't he?
Yeah, it was like almost half. I want to say it's almost half the year.
Yeah, for Notre Dame, you could have played like almost 16 games because they made it to the championship game.
Yeah, so he only played in six games last year.
Right. So a little bit hard to evaluate. I think he's really good when he's allowed to face the line of scrimmage and actually read the quarterback's eyes and read the play. So I think he's going to be good in zone. He's got great ball hawk stuff. He's got nearly double-digit career interceptions, which a lot of these corners do not have. Great ball skills. He's also really good at not giving up the deep ball. Like as a cornerback, he acts as his own last line of defense quite often, I think. And he's got good speed. I know he didn't test, but I do believe he's pretty fast. So he can recover when beat. He's a guy who's capable of getting beat and then getting back into play. I don't think he's going to be very good in press. He doesn't have good length for press, and he doesn't have good footwork either. I don't like his footwork very much. He's not a good tackler. Not a very smooth mover, so I think man coverage is going to be tough for him. I feel like he's a little bit slow on his click and close. And then you have all the injuries. I give him a lot of credit for having those ball skills. Those ball skills are remarkable. But there's a lot of ifs here. There's a lot of ifs. Like, if he's allowed to stay in zone coverage, if he isn't asked to press, if he's asked to not do a lot of tackling, if he recovers from his injuries. So I ended up pushing him down to like the mid-second round. I had a lot of reservations here.
Yeah, I'm probably a little less on the reservations, though there's some problems still to his game for sure. I liked him a little more, I think, impressed than where you're at with it. I'm not saying he was dominant with it, but I did like him a little bit more with that. Really near special ability to keep his hips patient on the drop into coverage. There's just no panic. He never turns his hips in the wrong direction. He's always in the right place, and the receiver is going to be at the stem of his route and make that break and cut where he can jump on top of the route. Gets his head turned around for the ball. He can do both two things to me, Brendan, where he can both get around and have ball skills to take it away. And also if he's late to just being able to get his hands in there to make the play, he's still able to really be a mangler and tear that ball out of the hands of the receiver at that moment of truth. So a really hard guy to get completions on, in my opinion. There are times where I swear he's running in man coverage and he's able to still keep his eye on the quarterback. Part of why I think he has that ability to go get the ball is that he can just kind of feel where his guy's at and then still kind of have like two eyes going in different directions and still be able to then go make the play on the ball, which I really liked about him. Just solidly built. He looks bigger on film than the 6'1" 190 that he's listed at. He's just a really well put together, strong defender. Tackling came a little bit forward this year, but that's part of getting the season cut short. You didn't get a long view of it because that was a little bit of an issue coming into the season for me. But I think that he would have been a 90th percentile, upper 90th percentile athlete for the position if he had tested. I lean back a little bit on that. The arm length is a little bit worrisome, but didn't really hold him back in college when he was healthy. So I do put him hardly still about the same place. Middle second round is where I land at with him. But that's also with there's the hip surgery that he just had, has a wrist thing going on in addition to it. So that's also a little bit of this coming into the factor here.
Yeah, I put him there too. The ball skills are really hard to deny. He's a phenomenal takeaway artist.
Yeah. And just no give up. I mean, he's so competitive at the catch point. You know what I mean? Like when that ball's in the air, he's going to increase that extra gear to get to it. He's going to do, it's like he's going to fight his butt off to get back into that play. And I love watching that with him on tape.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Next guy up for me in the second round, another guy that I think, is kind of being slept on a little bit. Other the corners getting talked about a little bit more than this guy is, but a guy that's been, I think, a riser here through this pre-draft process, and that is going to be Trey Amos of Ole Miss.
All right, so Trey Amos, Ole Miss, good size, pretty decent arm length. Ran a 1.6 10-yard split, which is not what you really want to do. Not necessarily slow either. It's weird. You almost never see that, the 1.6 10-yard split, but then he finishes strong with the 4.43 on the 40. Kind of weird. 32.5-inch broad is kind of vertical jump is kind of embarrassing for a corner too. So mixed bag with the testing. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Big time ball hawk last year, 13 pass breakups, which is one of the higher numbers in college football. Very good at taking away the deep ball. He's really good at making sure that he doesn't let stuff get over his head. Really good in press. He's really good at taking away quick, short completions because he's good in press. Quickness and agility to hang in man coverage as well. His ability to like dive at the last second to get himself into the catch window is really good. He's very physical, not afraid to get his hands dirty. And I think his reading abilities lend themselves well to zone. Some of the concerns I have would be double moves. I think he will bite on fakes and misdirection. He's not very good in run support, which is disappointing because he does have some size. I would expect a little bit better. I think his click and close is a little bit delayed. His ball tracking isn't quite where you'd want it to be in terms of putting himself in position to take it away, I feel like. There is some development that needs to happen here. So I ended up putting him in the middle second round as well. I think there's a good flexibility to play multiple schemes. I like the fact that he should be able to play press. You're going to find somewhere where this guy can help you. So I went with middle second.
Yeah, press zone cornerback is kind of how I saw him at his best. And I think that this is one of those things, the 1.6 and the 32.5 inch for our factors. You want to think about him because like that's explosiveness scores. I don't know if I saw as much on the tape, there being a limited side to that you'd expect by the testing times, if that makes sense, Brendan. And I think you agree with that on it, where it's worrisome, but it didn't show up on tape glaringly. So last year, one of my favorite success stories for me in doing our draft coverage was looking at Kool-Aid McKinstry and saying that this guy reminds me of Marcus Lattimore, pure kind of calm. And then what did the Saints do? The same team that took Marcus Lattimore, they ended up drafting Kool-Aid McKinstry. And I swear to the God to this day that I think the reason they did that, Brendan, was because of the fact that they saw the same echoes of that player in them. And this guy, I see the same echoes of the player in him. I just very similar kind of players, very feisty, very light on their feet, just can always stop and start, stay with the man in coverage, kind of best in zone, can do a little smattering of man, even down to like you talked about the tackling stuff. There's a willingness to get off the blocks. Just sometimes he feels light on tape. He's also got this move where he tries to do this like spin move off the block with receivers when they're doing it. And sometimes he spins and he's right there to make the play. Sometimes he spins in the wrong direction and takes himself out of the play for the tackle, which just was kind of like annoying at times where it's like, dude, don't get too cute here. Just fight off the thing and at least force the leverage back inside. You want to, if you're not making the tackle, sometimes force him back to your help. Don't bail out and give him the backdoor escape that you're kind of doing so in those moments. But I think that he's just a pretty safe player and that maybe his upside isn't tremendous, but the floor is really strong with him, I think. And he is willing as a tackler, so maybe that can improve with time. It's not so much he's just making business decisions as he's just sometimes just bounces off guys. It just feels light, shorter arms, that type of thing. But I think he'll make it work like Lattimore and McKinstry did last year. So I think he's solidly placed in the second round.
Yeah, I like him. I think that I wish he was a little bit better in run support, but I also think it's fixable. I don't think it's something where it's just like, oh, he'll never be good in run support.
Agreed. The willingness is there. And so many of these corners we watch on tape, we're going to talk about a few of them here. The willingness is not there. You can see them just doing they call it the brother-in-law plays where it's like, it's my brother-in-law on the other side. We're just going to both give out the bare minimum effort. And look, I ain't going to do nothing. You ain't going to do nothing. We'll let the others decide this as far as the run game goes. And he's not that kind of guy with that. All right. Keeping it moving here to the guy that is someone the Seahawks have actually met with and one of the more intriguing cornerbacks in this entire draft. Really long guy, cut high. Man's name is Shavon Revel. East Carolina.
Yeah, East Carolina. I think they're like the Pirates or something.
That's right. The Pirates, East Carolina Pirates.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Revel Jr. This is the kind of corner that Pete Carroll would have really loved.
Oh, yeah.
This is a big, long, lean, long-armed corner. Only 1 year of significant production, but it was a really good year. It was 2023. He missed most of 2024 with a pretty big injury, and that's no joke, by the way. We need to know more about that. Probably why we met with him. That may have had something to do with it. But 13 passes broken up, 19 of 43 completions allowed when targeted, which is really good. Big time size, big time length, and even though he didn't test, we know he's very fast. He's got that elite speed. Deadly in press. If you put him in press, receivers, they're going to have a heck of a time dealing with that. Not afraid of getting up there and run support, sticking his nose in there and making a play on the ball carrier. He's got great closing speed, which allows him to recover and make up distance if he gets beat. He's got vision and reads from zone that are really good. He's got a really good understanding of how to read plays. The injury is no joke. That needs to be vetted. He's got a little bit, he's like long-legged, which what
High
that
cut.
does, yeah. And you know what that does is it just makes it harder to change direction because your strides are longer. So I don't know about him in man coverage. I think that could be a little bit dicey. Doesn't always take the best angles when coming up to tackle. And I don't know about his ball skills. I think that his ability to make a play on the ball at the point of catch is a little bit dubious. He doesn't have bad ball skills, I guess, but I don't think he puts himself in great position for takeaways. But I think he's a great prospect. That combination of size and speed is going to get my attention. I think that as long as he makes a full recovery, he is almost perfect for a zone-based scheme. I ended up putting him in the back of my first round. I love this guy.
I could get it. And I think that if he had gone through a full season of being healthy, Brendan, he's probably a top 20 pick in this draft. With where you've got him. He's like a pterodactyl on the field, and that he's long, Brendan, but didn't he feel like to you too, when the ball's in the air, it just feels like he gets longer. It's like a ball, you go, well, that'll maybe be a little bit over his head, and just suddenly the go-go gadget arms stretch out a little bit longer, and he's able to go pluck the thing or just knock it away there and make a play on it. But it stood out to me when you talk about the testing that we're not going to have. If this guy would have ran, he would have been like a 4.37, 1.5, 10-yard split guy to me. He has that kind of explosiveness and speed. It's quickness and speed. So it's that burst you get with him in addition, which could be a helping factor when it comes to the change of direction stuff, which is fair and valid with the long legs and being high cut, but then he can make up for it with some of that getaway speed and quickness that he does possess. Loved him as a tackler. Very aggressive. I think he's just a rugged kind of cornerback. There was one play I was watching where he breaks into the backfield to go make the play. Colston Loveland's coming back around for the Michigan Wolverines on a crackback block, hits him, and I mean lights him up. And as he's getting lit up, still gets in there and gets his hands on the running back and drags him down. You think, man, he's going to roll around on the ground a little bit. Colston got him there, and he just pops right back up like it's no thing and goes right back to the huddle. Just a great play. And I mean, Colston lit him up, still made the tackle though. And he's like that where he'll take the pain and go make the tackle. He's not a guy, there's anything close to making kind of business decisions. The ball skills you talk about are also valid. I think some of it just comes from him being a little bit late to get his head turned around, and that he just doesn't have that, I'm watching the quarterback. He's locking in on trying to stay glued to his guy more than he's looking back at the quarterback at times, which just prevents him from having some more picks because he has times where he's in the right position where he could go get him if he just did get that head turned around a little bit. But some guys got ball skills, some guys don't. Either have it or you kind of don't on that. But I love the player, man, and I don't know if I'd go first round because of the injury side and coming off like he is, but if he can come back from it, first round talent, no doubt about that. I do have him in the second round, but a first round talent.
I don't think I'd be too happy getting him at 18. I don't think I'd be angry, but I'd hope you could trade back a little bit if you're going for this guy. But I really like Revel.
I do too. I think he's a fun player.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, that's my last of my second round guys. This next guy that I've got up, do you have him in your second round being Azareye'h Thomas of Florida State, or do you got him cracked in the third round like I do?
I had him at the very back end of my second round.
Okay.
Very back end.
Fun,
and by the way, when you do the rounds, when you're doing rounds, do you just kind of go with what your feeling is, or do you actually make a list and you're like, okay, my top 32 guys are first round guys, my next 32 guys are second round guys? How do you do it? Do you actually go with how the value literally translates to a list, or do you just go, I feel like this guy is a first rounder, even if I happen to have 40 first round guys this year? That's how I feel. Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, I would put him up if I think he's got the right grade to be in that spot. I'll put him up in that spot. So I run it just purely as the grade with it. I don't do as much of the ranking thing, like, okay, I've got these guys in the third round. I kind of feel like you can see if you agree on this. If I come down and I'm in the second round and I say, okay, I have a choice between two guys I have second round grades on, two high second round grades. Let's put this two: Donovan Ezeruku and Nick Emawari, two high second round graded guys. I feel like I can, in my evaluation, you can give me two names of any names, and I can tell you which of those ones pretty immediately, even though they're really aligned close, that I'm going to want. Does that make sense? I think that gets to kind of the heart of your question, right? Which is, don't you have the same thing? Like if I say, okay, second round, Brendan, do you want to go, Shamar Stewart or Benjamin Morrison?
I guess I'd go Stewart. I guess.
Right. But you didn't have to think about that. I think you're the same way with this, where even though you don't have them like your list of like the teams will with the board of just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, regardless of the horizontal board, in your mind kind of where the guys land if you get asked, this or that. If I go to the offense, let's do it offensively. If I go, if I were to go, let's say Mason Taylor or Jonah Savania.
I'm a Jonah guy on that. Front.
There we go. There's not that there's a right answer there. It's just that you have which way you'd go of the value of the player there between those two. And those are two guys you'd agree with. They're kind of ranked in the same place, right? In the second round, very high in the second round, both, right?
Yeah, I'd say I go with that. Yeah, but because I was doing my big board a couple days ago, my final official big board, and there were a lot of guys that I said like my gut reaction was this is a 5th round prospect, and then I get down to my 5th round and there's like 60 players in there, and I'm like, oh crap, I got to start bumping these guys down, and I'm like, well, do I really have to bump them down?
I wouldn't do that, because what it does is it gives you you're going to save these lists, right? Like what I do too is I'm sure you do is you go back sometimes and look at your previous year's notes and stuff on certain guys. Mm-hmm. And to me, I think if you start bumping, you're going to artificially push guys up to where they don't belong, number one. But number two, it's that you got them in the right spot. And what my opinion is on that is that there's a draw in this game, the paralysis by analysis thing. There's a draw to start doing a little bit too moving around of guys versus your initial instinct tends to be the right one on the guys, and where you put them is the right one. And I think you got to just kind of roll with that one and trust in it. And then it gives you the ability to go back and have historical markers that are correct when you go into future years. Like, well, where did I have this guy rated? Well, did you bump that guy up or did you actually have him rated here? Does that make sense? I know we're getting a little bit in the weeds on this, but does that make kind of sense?
Yeah, I think I do. I think I get what you're saying. It is a little bit of a tricky thing because, right, everything's relative. Like, yeah, if I think a player is the 18th best player in this draft and we get him at 18, I theoretically should be pretty content with that, right?
Yeah, I think you should. I mean, it's some of it is also that gives you the contextualize. For instance, if you have 8 first-round grades, but then let's say you have 27 second-round grades, if you have a guy that gets taken in the first round, but he's got a second-round grade, well, that's likely to happen because there's so few first-round grades. So do you bump those guys into the first round to create more first-round grades? No. You'd say, look, this is the nature of this given draft. This is why every draft is different and different strengths and different weaknesses and different spots of the draft. And as is the case this year.
Right. All right. So I just wanted to go over that a little bit. I think that's an interesting discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's fun to try to figure out that stuff out, but got to keep them where you got to put, man. Like this year, I've got a load of guys in the 4th, 5th round. That's where the huge glut of my horizontal board is going to be kind of at. But I've also first, second round, I had more first and second rounders cumulatively this year than I did last year by about 9 more extra this year.
All right. Nice. Anyway, Azraya Thomas, I did actually learn how to pronounce his name for the video I did on him, but I forgot what it is now. But it's like Azraya.
Azraya.
Something like that. But anyway, he's big, got good size, almost 200 pounds, long arms. Love that. A middle second rounder on the big boards. He's a really good press corner. Really going to snuff out anything short and quick because he's so long. He's just able to get in there, and you really can't get anything past him early in the rep. Uses his length well to get his hand on a lot of passes. He's aggressive in the way he attacks the run. But as the play goes on, his speed will betray him. He's not very fast, not very quick. So if you put him in man, opposing corners, receivers are going to get to break away from him over time. He's a little out of control when he's trying to tackle. I think he ends up putting himself in some bad positions. I don't think his click and close is very good either. So we have real problems with him in zone or man, honestly. And the way he plays physically, he may end up drawing a lot of flags. So there are some holes here. Like, I'm not sure what he does. Like, is he going to be a zone corner? Probably. I don't think his zone abilities are fully developed yet, though. I don't think that his click and close is good enough. I don't know if his instincts are good enough. So I ended up going late second rounder, and that's only if I'm running the right scheme for a guy like this, a long physical corner that is pretty grabby and not very fast. I don't know. I wasn't a big fan of this one. He feels a little bit siloed to me.
Yeah, this is a guy that honestly at this point I'm more being pulled more and more to try to push him into the fourth round. I've got him third round, but I'm feeling a draw here, Brendan. Well, also we did get his pro day numbers 4, 5, 6, 40, and then a 4.21 shuttle. So his shuttle's just barely faster than a guy like Zah Frasier of UTSA, who's 6'3" and a lot longer and faster. And the important part with these testing times with him is that he's not one of these zone off coverage kind of guys. This is a press man cover corner that needs to be able to turn and burn and run with guys. And if you don't have that kind of speed to do that, say nothing of the change of direction short shuttles, because you're in press and you're in man. There's stop and start. There's change of direction too. It ain't just getting up and running foot step for step. So I've got two things with him of, I don't know if you can run step for step, and I don't know if you're going to change direction on the in breaking routes and that type of stuff. And so I've got some big worries with him. Now he's 21, so young. He's got the length. You like that? Big hands on him. There's some nice things to him as far as watching him on the tape, and he is really good in press and at turning and burning and running for the most part. But like you did say, there are moments in there where you do feel with him like it's just he gets a little bit exposed for the lack of speed that does exist there and that does show up on tape. Got good ball skills. He can high point the ball. I like overall how he tackles and really attacks blocks. But boy, he's got to be kind of fit into a little very small box. And even that small box, I don't know how successful he's going to be within it.
Yeah. I may end up bumping him down a little bit too. I do think that the size and length is valuable, but the more I think about it, the more I'm like, I don't really know how this is going to come together.
No, I don't either see how, and he's got to go to a very specific scheme, I think, to find any kind of success. But I mean, that 4, 5, 6 time, that's pretty tough there, especially without the lack of change of direction there for his size. So definitely probably the guy of all these cornerbacks that I'm getting colder on as we go through the process as much as any.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next up in my third round, I've got Zai Alexander. Reminded me that this kid watching him, Brendan, he kind of got similar sort of build to the Daryl Simon, another LSU corner we took back in the day. Kind of looked like him to me a bit.
Yeah, I was pretty cold on this one, Zai Alexander. Couldn't find his age, but he's pretty tall. He's pretty lean, got a decent amount of length. But I'll tell you, his testing numbers did not get my attention. 4, 5, 6, 40, 1, 5, 3, 10-yard splits, okay, but the explosiveness, there's not a lot of explosion in his hips. Not a lot of production at LSU. It was okay. Pros that I had with him, he's capable when coming up to tackle and run support. Got some decent ball skills. Did play a little bit of safety at LSU. Maybe that provides value. Maybe you end up finding out later that, hey, he's not really a corner, but maybe he's a safety, kind of like we did with Kobe Bryant now, it feels like. He's got some pretty good fundamentals. He's pretty sticky in man. Not very effective in press. He's gotten injured a lot in his career. I know he's got a track record of injuries. I know he's missed some pretty significant time in his career. Did not test well at all, which was not expected. I think he was expected to be a little better than that. He is lean, and that he might need to add a little bit of weight in the NFL. Still has to find another gear when coming up to make tackles. He's willing, but I think he needs to take it up another notch to make up for some of these athletic shortcomings. So I kind of feel like he's going to be a guy who's adequate in most areas, but he's not actually going to be good at anything. So I actually went early 5th rounder on this one. I couldn't get into him at all.
Yeah, I definitely liked a little bit more of his game. I think you mentioned, I think there's just a lot of clean aspects to his game without there being any kind of glaring hole, I think, to his game on the side of it. Now the testing times aren't great. That's to be sure. You want to see a little bit better there. I like him as just a guy that you get him, you're going to play against this guy, the other side of it. You're in a 12-round fight, he's going to be a press guy that's going to come up and just try to knock you around and be really physical. I hadn't thought about the safety transition, but I think that's maybe a valid approach with him because he is such a good tackler and how he attacks the line of scrimmage with really a sense of urgency that's very unusual for cornerbacks. Most of these guys just do their bare minimum kind of stuff. I like just the steady improvement that you got to see from this guy over his career. Last year, went from the previous year of giving up 445 yards in coverage to only giving up 204. Even down to how he was targeted 48 times the prior year, gave up 29 receptions, targeted 46 times this year, gave up only 20 receptions for 200 yards. mean, that's a big jump of improvement from him as far as his coverage goes from one year to the next. And that's one thing I do kind of get caught up on, guys, is do I see that improvement, especially for a guy like this that's played 2,500 snaps in his college career, that I saw the steady improvement from him throughout that time. Ball skills are a little suspect. He's got a couple of Hail Mary interceptions on the books this year. And so I don't think you're going to get a lot with him on that. There's not any great plus side to his game either, but there's not any great negative side to it. It's going to be kind of a boring sort of, to me, third round pick, but a guy that should be a day one starter ready to go that gives you a pretty complete game if you do take him in the third round to me.
Yeah, I just got the sense that he was going to be one of those guys who was okay at everything, but not actually good at anything.
It's possible. I mean, I think he's going to be a pretty good press zone kind of corner in that way because he plays it smart and he's going to go attack the run off zone. So he's not going to get hung up on the receiver's block. He'll be a factor in that play of things. But I think that there's not the deficiency to that other side either. I mean, that's the other thing too, is that there's not a place I think you can pick on him with either to his game of something of that's a glaring hole. Like some of these other guys, even the guys at the top of the draft we're talking about, where it's like, I don't want this guy in man coverage. I think he'll get, I don't know if that's the same way there with Zah on this one, but I can understand, man. The testing ain't great. They're in 31-inch engines. Even there, it's in shorter than you'd like it to be with the lack of speed. He did have the good quickness with the 1.5, 3, 10-yard split, though. So at least that part was a legit. And you can see that with him and his ability to get up and go quick. He's got the vroom vroom. All right, we'll keep it moving here to one of the great testers of this draft and a guy that's really risen up the board. And I think for me, Brennan, I think this is maybe my Mike Mamula of the cornerbacks this year. See what you think on this one. I didn't mind his tape, but my goodness, there's people talking about him in the first round now.
Yeah. I that may end up happening. And let's see, what did I have here? Okay, so Kentucky 22. He's pretty light. He probably needs to add some weight. 183 is tight. I mean, he's not a slot corner, right? He's a boundary corner. I think you're going to need to weigh a little bit more. Arm length is okay. And yeah, you're right. The testing numbers were off the charts. 4.28, 1.5, 10-yard split, almost a 40-inch vert, 10-foot 9-inch broad. So he's a great athlete, very explosive. I think he missed significant time in 2024, though, right? He didn't play the whole season.
Something like that. Yeah, that's right.
He had 5 interceptions the year before, though, so he has shown some good ball skills. So the pros I think he'll be good in zone and man. I think he's got versatility for scheme. Elite speed, elite explosiveness. Closing speed gives him a lot of chances to take the ball away. He's sticky coverage even against complex routes. He's got the reactive athleticism to keep up against man. Expertly reads quarterbacks in combinations with wide receivers to know where the ball is going. So he's got really good diagnosis skills. But he is a little bit small and a little bit short-armed for an outside corner, which is where he's going to end up. His ball tracking when he's in man isn't great. I think that most of his takeaways come when he's in zone. Really doesn't offer anything in run support and tackling, which would be a problem in this defense in particular off the top of my head. And he there's not a lot he's going to be able to do against bigger receivers. If you put a big receiver on this guy, I don't know what he's going to do. Missed most of 2024 is what I have in my notes. So I'm guessing he played like 4 or 5 games. So tremendous athlete. I think he can get away with being smaller because he is so fast, but I had to dock him a little bit just because of the tackling. I ended up putting him in like the middle second round, maybe even late second round. Like, I think that hole in his game is never going away, and that's something that you really kind of need in this defense in particular.
Yeah, I think that your points are pretty on point with it, with where I see him as well. I don't think he's quite as fast as he was tested. I'm not seeing Xavier Worthy out there on the outside from the corner position as far as like that kind of speed. It's good. Don't get me wrong. Quickness is good, but it's not. These are like elite numbers that would make you think that the guy's just faster than everybody else on the field, and you feel that playing and play out, and you don't. Especially with the fact that he played so much zone, Brennan. I mean, you think a guy that is this fast at his size where he's at, that they would be sprinkling in more man coverage snaps, wouldn't you? Because you figure the guy can run with anybody. He can stay with anybody, stop and start. You aren't going to shake him. But instead, you kept him more in zone based, which I found to be a little bit strange. The notes that you had about the tackling are also, I think, salient ones. He's undersized. He will reasonably kind of try to get off blocks. I think even that's kind of subpar, but the tackling would be average at best to slightly below average. And I think you're also correct on this point in the bigger receivers. I think bigger receivers are going to both bully him in the run game, where he's going to have a hard time getting off those blocks. And I think that at the catch point with the shorter arms and stuff, there's going to be times where those guys are going to be able to just outleap him, your Drake London types or your Tatora McMillan types. I think give this kind of player a lot of problems at the next level. And that's why I did put him into the third round.
Yeah, I couldn't quite take him down that far. He is still a really, really good athlete, but I ended up not liking him as much as I thought I would.
Yep. I wanted to like him more, man. I just didn't. I just felt like the last year having the injury is the big part where that sucks for him because it held him back, and he might have given you that year to lock some of this stuff down where you got to lean back on the 23 tape and just hold into that. A lot of these guys take that final year step, which is significant, and he just wasn't given that opportunity because of the injuries, which isn't necessarily his fault. So a little bit of some advanced math to be done with him on this one too, that I could be missing on a bit. Mm-hmm. Okay, next guy up on my list is guy's been a bit of a riser for me. I might be a little bit like him a little bit more than you do on this. Got a fun name, Melo Dodson, the Kansas cornerback.
Yeah, Melo Dodson, interesting candidate here. Kansas corner. I think Kansas had two corners this year that are kind of slow and big, and they find a way to be effective with the other guy, Kobe Bryant, who I think we'll talk about a little later today as well. Yep. So he's got good size, got pretty good length. Did not test well at all, but that wasn't unexpected. He runs like a 4.6 40, but that was kind of anticipated. Not explosive, not really a fast mover at all. But the man can take away the football like few others. He's got 9 picks in the last 2 seasons. So he's constantly finding his way to the ball. 18 passes broken up, which is a lot for a college corner. So he's got the size to play on the boundary in the NFL. Lots and lots of ball skills, lots of collegiate experience. I think he was like a 4-year starter at Kansas or something. He's got a great click and close, a lot of big plays. I think he had like 3 pick sixes last year. So when he gets the ball in his hands, he's a threat to go all the way back. He's got a great instinctive understanding of how to play zone defense. Now there is definitely a clear limitation here. He's very slow. He's not going to be able to cover downfield. Can't imagine him doing man coverage at all. He gives up a lot of completions due to his lack of speed. So you're going to have to keep him out of those situations. And I don't think he's as good of a tackler as I was hoping. I think he's got to improve in that area a little bit. So I ended up putting him, I think, initially in about my 4th round. Because there were so many corners in this draft, I ended up bumping him down, but that was kind of like that artificial thing. I think he's like a 4th rounder. His ball hawk skills are very, very appealing, but there's a narrow use case here overall.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair evaluation of him. He's a guy that is rising up the board because, he's got the 9 interceptions over the last 2 years, but Brendan, it could have easily been 17, where there are snaps littered throughout his tape where it's hitting him in the hands. He's right there in the right position in other spots to make the play. So it's not just 9 cheap interceptions. I'm talking about Zai Alexander, for instance. There's a couple picks, 3 picks of his 4 or something are Hail Marys, where they're cheap. They're kind of cheap picks. Or other guys where it's overthrows and they're just having a particular year where there's a tip pass, they make the pick. Their interception numbers are kind of artificially inflated. What I'm saying with him is that his are legit. He makes his happen. And while the testing times are a little bit slower than you like at the 4.59, did have the 1.53 10-yard split. And I would call him hyper athletic on the football field. So I think that does counterbalance a little bit of that lack of speed and his ability to change direction, flip his hips, do that type of thing. His arm length is fine. It's not super short of some of these other guys at like 29 inches or 30 inches. It's 31.5. So it's close to where you like to have the markers to be at on that side of it. He can read the route and run it better than the receiver at times, which I think is part of what's going to translate to him to the next level and getting interceptions and picks bare minimum at the next level if he is going to be a starter there. You're right about the tackling, and it's a little bit of it's a two-way street on this one. He's got the ankle torpedo tackling technique down pat. Like he launches in there, knocks out, but he leans on it too much. He's not a wrap and roll guy. He's a guy that just wants to fire in there at the ankles. That's the place where that's got to come a little bit more forward. He's very hard to predict in his movements. He's just a long day at the office for wide receivers, and it's almost chaotic, Brendan, but it's controlled chaos in the way he plays it in that way. So I do think that your assessment's fair. I just really do value a guy that can take away the ball like he does. 3-year starter. I think that means this guy walks in and he's able to start for you day one in addition to that, where you don't have to wait a long period of time onto that. Really do like this guy. Very well may end up having him at the top of my third round. I'm kind of middle third round, but he might be my first corner in the third round when it's all said and done by the time we get to the draft.
I think that if you put him in the exact right role at all times and you know exactly what he is, maybe he could be worth that. I just, I've come to really value versatility because with how fast coaches change and schemes change, I've really come to value versatility, and I don't think this guy brings that versatility.
That's fair. And again, there are questions on the tackling side too that go to whatever he does in coverage that are the other part of this puzzle. So interesting player, but one of them might be a little understandable. I'm a little maybe higher on him than you might be with that one. All right, keeping it moving on. This is kind of one of my more, I boringly put him in the fourth round for me here as we start off my fourth round range of things. I struggle to get warmed up to this guy. There's times I even want to ding him down further. Ohio State just kind of produces some boring ass cornerbacks, Brendan, sometimes. I mean, they're kind of like, I don't know. They get away with it where it's like they don't get as much hype. They're kind of a university though, for all the receivers that they pump out. They sure pump out some real middling cornerbacks.
Yeah, there was that one cornerback who had the really good tape in his freshman year a few years ago, and then every year after that, he just completely fell apart, and everyone thought this was a money in the bank first rounder, and ended up going in like the 6th or something. I'm trying to remember what his name was.
I know. I remember we watched him for a couple of years too. But that's exactly right. That's exactly the type of corner I'm talking about, where you're just like, they're kind of that way with safeties too. Where you just end up going like, it's all right.
Yeah.
They're fine.
All right. So I had Denzel Burke about my 4th round as well. Decent workable size, a little bit small, but not critically so. Tested okay, 4.48 40. Lots of college experience at a major program. He's good in press. His press skills are good. Good deal of strength, knows how to utilize it. He's aggressive when he comes up to make tackles. I think he's going to be good in run support. He's good. He's a good mover. I think he'll be good in man. I feel like he's a little indecisive, and that costs him opportunities to make plays. I feel like occasionally he can be a little bit indecisive when breaking on his read. Doesn't have great speed, so speedier receivers are going to break away from him on a man cover opportunity. I don't know. His click and close is a little bit hesitant, I think. And I do think he's best suited to stay in zone, but he's got to clean that up a little bit. You got to be a little bit more decisive to gun it when you feel like the play is breaking a certain way. So just kind of okay. I think he's worth a round 4 pick. He's got okay measurables. He's got an okay list of strengths. He's got an okay list of weaknesses. Everything's just kind of okay here.
Yeah, he's like the man cover version. Shaquille Griffin was a zone cover corner. This guy's to me the man cover corner equivalent of Shaquille Griffin. It's just like he'll get the job kind of done, but it is not going to impress you or wow you in how he does it. Speed's there, but he's got a little bit of some lateral bounce, which is suspect. I think his hips are a little stiff. His change of direction has me slightly worried. Also, kind of when you watch a guy like this going in the final year and they take the step backwards, to me, Brendan, that's a big red flag. It was 111th rated corner in 23, and I think he was like the 200 and something in 24. He allowed 80% catch rate this year, Brendan. 80% of the passes thrown his way, he allowed completions on this past season. Including he had one for 77 yards where he got roasted over the top in the Oregon game. I want to bump him down so badly, but I just feel like there's so many that have him up so much higher than me on this. I feel bad to do so, but I was really underwhelmed by the tape on this guy. I hope we stay.
He's whatever.
Yeah. Please no, John, let this one go. Just put this one back in the water. Let somebody else catch this fish on that side. All right, we'll keep it moving here. Next guy I had up on my board is Chandler Rivers. I
don't think I know this one. I don't know if I've heard this one before. This one's all you. Yeah, I've never heard of him actually.
So a Duke cornerback, 5'10", 180. I've called him 92% of Byron Murphy, the Minnesota Viking former Husky corner. So a lot of that sticky corner, competitive as hell of a tackler. Showed a capability of playing corner at a high level inside and outside, so both can play in and out. Has speed, but especially has quickness and can just pounce on routes. Ball skills and route recognition to undercut routes and make a play on the ball. Very good hustle to get after it in the run game. There are snaps mixed in where he takes the foot off the gas, but by and large, he is active in the run game and fighting off blocks and shows good play recognition. Only five games this year with 2 targets or less. Only 50% completed in his way with 64 rating. So quarterbacks just don't test him. One of the hallmarks I look for really good corners is when you get to go through a whole game of watching him, Brendan, and they're just not being thrown at. Where quarterbacks just go, look, I'm not testing that side of the field. I know what happens if I go over there. And this guy, you get that feeling of him when you go through his tape. So I actually liked him a little bit. 5'10", 180 is the thing that's going to hold him back a little bit. Maybe lack of arm length there a little bit. But you at least have a fallback plan here where this guy falls back to the slot, becomes a full-time slot for you, and becomes one of the better ones in the league from that position if he has to change there, if he can't work on the outside.
Okay. All right. I'll try to check him out, but yeah, I've not heard of this guy.
Yeah, and it might not be where you have to, because he may just be to where he does play full-time slot, and we're not looking for a slot. If that's what we're looking at him as, we got to see him as an outside guy. So maybe not as much on the Hawks radar here in that you need to on that one. You know what I mean?
Right.
Next guy's another guy that I like a lot. Another guy that's really grown on me in the process of watching him a ton here, Brendan. Another guy in the 4th round who's a riser for me, Dorian Strong, the Virginia Tech outside corner.
Yeah, I liked him a lot too. I ended up putting him in the late 3rd, actually. So I like him even maybe a little bit more than that. He is lean. He's definitely lean. Sub 31-inch arms as well. So we got some mild limitations here. He's not a great athlete either, but I think he's got good ball skills. I think he's really tough at the catch point. I think he's going to be pretty decent in press as well. Good in man, good in zone. Like that's the thing that really kind of stands out to me with Dorian Strong. I think he's going to be good in most areas. He's a good tackler. He's got good instincts. I think he'll be good in zone, man, off, press, run support. I think he'll be pretty good at all of it. I don't know if he'll be stellar at any of it. He's not a great athlete. I think he can get tricked by trusting his instincts from time to time. Doesn't take the best angles as a tackler sometimes, but I feel like I just feel like he's going to end up being good at just about everything. And that's something that I place a good amount of value on. So I ended up actually going late 3rd round.
My comp on him is Chivarius Ward. Like that comp?
Okay. I'm feeling it. Yeah, okay. I'm down. I like it.
I liked him as just a press you to death kind of corner. It's like you got a 10-pound weight on your back when this guy's up at the line of scrimmage in press coverage. 5 years in college, and he pretty much started right from the jump. As you said on this, I think you spoke to this a bit at the heart of this, just the flexibility and how you can use this guy. This is what we want for our defense. Guys that can play off coverage, they can play press and play press, can play press and then go drop to zone coverage with a bail zone drop, can do these variety of different things in this defense, and he can do that from a coverage basis. If quarterbacks stare down their target, he's going to get picks. He's going to be able to feel those eyes, get the ball head, turn around, and go get some interceptions on that side of it. I do worry a little bit on the tackling, sometimes slow to react to plays. Sometimes he's not the most eager to get his head in there and go make a play. He's kind of the antithesis of a guy like Shavon Revel in that way. But he just brings a certain level of skills to the position and what he does. At the end of the day with the cornerback, I need you to cover. I want you to tackle, and I need that to come forward, but I want you to cover at a really high level and be able to play zone, be able to play man, do it fluidly, and help press on top of that. He gives you that. I think there's really good value to be had here, and I understand completely bumping him up into the 3rd round. It makes a ton of sense. He's, along with Dodson, been one of my 2 big risers on my board.
Yeah, I like him.
All right, next guy up here. This is another guy that I seem to be a little bit higher on than maybe the consensus is currently got him put at on some of the boards. I was doing mock drafts last night, Brendan. They were having him in the 6th, 7th round. But I like him. And Rutgers has produced some good cornerbacks here of recent note. What did you think about Robert Longerbeam?
All right. So, yeah. Okay, here we go. I couldn't find him for a second. I put him with my nickel corners because I do suspect that's where he'll be. Very, very small, 175 pounds. So right away, you're like, okay, that's probably nickel corner material, even though he has decent arm length, 31.5 inches. He's fast. He's quick, tested well, 11 foot 2 inch broad. So a lot of explosiveness. Pretty good production the last couple years. So let's see. I had positives. Was one of the leaders on that Scarlet Knights team. Was one of the locker room guys. He's a firm hitter when he's hunting ball carriers. He's got good ball skills, good closing speed. So he makes a play on a lot of passes in the air. Willing to get involved in run support. Maybe he's not great at it because he's so small, but he's willing. And I think he'll be good in man and zone. I think he has the movement skills for man, and I think he has the vision and play recognition for zone. But he is, at the end of the day, very, very light, which is going to make it hard for him to really be a good run support guy. And I think he's going to be a nickel corner at the NFL level, but he's barely played inside. He was an outside corner in college. So you're going to have to transition him there. And he does get beat deep sometimes. I think he lets players get behind him a little bit. So I ended up going 5th round here because I just think he's going to be a slot corner only. And there's a little bit of a tricky transition you got to make. But I do have an appreciation for him.
And I had him up a little bit higher because I do think that he is going to play on the outside at the next level, that he'll have just enough length to be able to do that on that side, and the speed and quickness is there to do it. In addition to that, like you said, he's only got 12 snaps out of the slot last year, so he's just not used in that way at all, which doesn't mean he can't be used there in the NFL with the stuff. I'm not saying that, but just that he has played really well on the outside. I think, too, when you come to look at his completions, 71 catches over the past 2 years, targeted 132 times. And when I watched the tape with it, Brendan, it's a lot of him in off coverage and dropping to bail technique. It's the old Carroll cover 3 stuff. And there's a few corners in this draft where what's going to happen with those kind of guys are going to get picked on underneath with the under routes, the quick short completions in front of them. He doesn't give up a lot of necessarily pure yardage on the back of those completions. It's just that's what the coverage is asking him to do. Really interesting is that when you have him in a kind of a condensed split where his receiver goes in motion and then he's got to get down on the line of scrimmage, they would then blitz him as a run defender in those moments. And he was absolutely a demon in the run game and making TFLs in the backfield. When you condense down and get that guy in motion, you get receivers to one side of the field and there's nobody the other side, but he kind of stays over to that side. He's only showed by PFF as blitzing 5 times. So they're not counting these as blitzes, but he's a great run blitzer essentially when he's coming off that edge. I don't know if it's necessarily that the injuries popped up last year and held him back in this way, but he took a big step backwards as far as tackling goes. And I do think that maybe some of that was the injury because it was kind of like a wet paper towel last year, sometimes in tackling attempts. But the previous year, he was really good with it. So I just like him a little bit better than you on that side. I think he's really explosive, and I do think he's going to be able to work on the outside. Got him in the 4.
I'd be surprised if he found a way to make it at the outside at 175. So we'll see.
We'll see. That's there are some guys out in the league that are doing that. So I know we talk about historical markers. Is there guys in the league right now at that size doing it? Yeah, I can probably find a good 15 corners on the outside in the league that are at this size making it work. Mm-hmm. It is undersized, it is, but if I've got the track record of recent note, then that gives me confidence that it can be done.
Right.
Next guy up for us is the other Kansas cornerback that we were talking about a second ago there next to Melo Dodson, and that's going to be Kobe Bryant. Do you want to just confuse opposing offenses, Brendan? We'll just go with 2 Kobe Bryants on the field. That's got to confuse somebody, right?
Sign me up for that. I'm pretty down for that one. I like him more than you do, I think. Let's see here. 180, so he's very lean. Decent arm length, though. 4.5, 340, so not particularly fast or quick or anything like that, which is a little disappointing because he's small. But he's another guy with monster ball production. That Kansas team has been taking the ball away like crazy the last couple of years with these two. Melo Dodson and Kobe Bryant, they're giving you an interception, feels like almost every game.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
13 total picks.
Yeah. So strong track record of taking the ball away, really good in run support. He might be one of the, I don't know if he's the best run supporting corner in this draft. I think he's up there. Great feel for zone, great feel for where the play is going, great play diagnosis, reads the eyes of the quarterback, might be decent in the slot as well. I usually don't say that because he's kind of slow and not very quick, but might be able to do some slot reps. He probably needs to add weight. I don't think 180 is going to cut it. He does get grabby and pick up penalties. Open field speed is lackluster, obviously. Bigger receivers give him problems. Probably not a candidate for man coverage. I think he'll be good in McDonald's scheme. I think there's a lot of positive things here. So I actually even went 3rd round on him. I like Kobe a lot.
I like him a lot too, as well. And don't undersell the man. Don't undersell the ball skills and taking away like he does. I like it too that he plays with a bit of a chip on his shoulder. His tackling did come forward this year, but it had been a problem in previous years. I think sometimes a little bit lightweight, and it seemed like he took a little bit more of that on the nose this year to try to make that a better part of his game. So I do like the way he attacks, even though he is an undersized guy. You do speak to a little bit of where I have him in for this reason, and that I think he's an off coverage corner and zone. That's where you've got to keep him. I think watching the Kansas tape, they kept him out of press as much as they possibly could. And I think a lot of that was shorter arms, not as good in press, not as much going to trust him and ability just to run with guys out of press. So he's got to stay in zone. And that's where there could be a fit here. We play more zone than we do play man, but I think that you're going to be limited not being allowed him to do that at all. And while the tackling did come forward, I still do sometimes have some slight concerns with them on that, which is the size being the big limited factor, not the will. The will is definitely there. Also penalized 12 times over the past 2 years. He can get a little bit grabby in coverage. Oh, yeah. And so that's where it just kind of the equilibrium knocked him into the 4th for me. But I like him a lot. He's a fun player. Another guy that, hey, you take away the ball and you're a willing tackler from the quarterback position, that's going to rise you up on my board quite a bit just in itself.
Yeah. I feel like he'll add weight in the NFL. Most players do. And he probably slimmed down a little bit for the combine anyway. So I'm less worried about it than I would be. He's got the frame to add weight if he wants to as well, I think.
I do too. 6'1", 175. He can add another 10 pounds, and he's not going to, I don't think, lose a lot of speed or whatnot. This guy's a little bit lower in the 4th round where I had him listed, Brendan, but we had Robs, who's been celebrating 16 months on my side as a Hawks Nest member. Thank you for that, Rob. So he was asking this question. I think it's a great one at that. We'll jump up on this one a little bit sooner. But Rob's asks, is Zah Frasier too raw like Woolen? This is one I was interested in your opinion on in watching the tape on this kid.
I mean, I don't know if there's really such a thing as too raw, because you're often taking players that you know are not ready to play yet that you think you can get ready to play down the line. So what would too raw be? Would that just be like a player who's so far away by the time he's ready to play, he's going to be like 29? Like, I think it'd be raw's a thing.
I mean, I think it's where they show you the ability, but then they just have these snaps cluttered in to where they look completely lost. And I mean, I think Woolen had some of that on his tape where you watched on his tape with UTSA, and there'd be some snaps where you're like, holy hell, this guy's could be a lockdown corner in the sport. And then other times where he'd take false steps or he'd flip his hips at the wrong time before there was anything in the route. And you go, dude, he's lost. He's completely just does no idea what he's doing out there. What am I getting player wise? But I don't know if I got to that same play with Frasier where I felt like he was that raw that Woolen was when I watched his tape coming out.
Yeah, I have an appreciation for Frasier. I think you want to go ahead and talk about Frasier now?
Yeah. Go for
it. So he is very similar to Woolen. He's got good size. He is lean. He's got long arms. He's got elite speed. Pretty good athlete all around. So there's a unique blend of traits here. His coverage numbers and takeaway numbers last year at UTSA were great. 18 receptions allowed on 39 targets, and he had 6 interceptions on 39 targets. So you don't find very many corners that have that ratio of targets to picks. So phenomenal athlete, rare combination of traits, really hard to get deep shots on him because he's so fast he can recover. Really good ball production in college. There's tremendous upside here because he's got minimal experience actually playing football. Now, he is much older than the average rookie. We're talking about a guy who's already 24, and you're talking about developing him for probably multiple years. A lot of work to be done. He bites hard on double moves. His hip transitions are segmented, not smooth. He's not necessarily a smooth mover like that. So I think the comp to Woolen is pretty good here. I think he has all the upside and all the downside that Woolen brought a few years ago. So if you want to take another shot with a corner like that, you're saying, look, we couldn't quite get where we wanted to get with Woolen. We're going to try it again with a similar player. I think that would be a fair evaluation to make. So I did put him in my day 3, but I do think he's a 4th round pick. I'd be okay taking him in the 4th.
Yeah, I find myself landing in very much the similar place you are. It's Rick Woolen 2.0, mildly better tackler. It's just a smidge better, but not hugely so. But I think all of what you kind of get with Woolen's game, you get with this kid. I mean, it's not just that they're from the same college, it's that they're built the same way. 6'3", you talked about the change of direction and that's what you're going to get a little bit of the taller guy. Some of that transition is not going to be as easy, but the ball skills are absolutely there with him. He's sticky in coverage. He can probably run zone and man, I think, though, again, change of direction is going to be a little bit tougher with him in man at times, but I still think he can be competent in how he runs that. Only one starting experience. So you feel like, man, there's still some upside here, even though he's a little bit of an older player and look at the production he had in that year of starting. He's better than Reek in that he gets off tackles. He gets to the run. He wants to be in on the run play, right? The spirit is willing, but there is when he arrives at the tackle spot, there's a little bit too many shoulder bump tackle attempts, which again, we get back to just like Woolen, right? He wants to come in there and I want to do this move, right? I want to just kind of throw my shoulder in you and kind of knock you down if I can that way. I'm 6'3", so if I hit you at 5'11", 185 as a receiver, I should be able to just knock you off your feet if I just shoulder you. It's like, dude, come up and wrap up, buddy. You gotta wrap up sometimes. Sometimes you can shoulder him, sometimes you gotta wrap him up. So a little bit of that there with him on that.
Maybe he can get better, but he is already 24. Wasn't Woolen younger than that when he came out?
He was. It's just that's where also the 1 year starting experience. If this guy had been starting for 3 or 4 years and he's 24, I'd go, well, he's fixed to what he is. But having so little starting experience of being an older prospect, that makes me wonder if maybe there's a chance that maybe he's a late riser here. The light bulb took a little bit of time to come on. Hard to say with these guys the pathway they take to get to where they're going, but that's the one reason that I have a little bit more faith. I think that there's going to be some upside there. But 4th round as well is where I'm taking him.
Okay.
So, Robs, thank you, man, for the long time support, 16 months as a member. And yes, I think he's a lot like Woolen, and nope, not too raw at all. In fact, a little more refined than Woolen was coming out. Yeah. Brian Myers, thank you for the $5 donation, Brian. Says Darian Porter, Null Williams, who we'll talk about here in just a second, Quincy Riley, or Jacob Parish. Who is the top guy that you have on your board between all those guys?
Well, Darian Porter is really interesting. I'm surprised he hasn't come up yet. In fact, did you have him on your list? I didn't.
I don't think I had him on my list. No.
Yeah, he's the Iowa State corner. He set the combine on fire. 6'3", 195, 33 and an 1/8 inch arms. Ran a 4.3 flat 40.
I did have him on my list. I just didn't put him on my big board. So I looked at him, but I didn't put him on my. So I looked at him.
Did you dislike something you saw, or did you forget?
I just didn't put him on my horizontal board, but I did look at him.
Okay. But phenomenal athlete. He's big, he's long, he's fast, incredible measurables, athletic profile to die for, elite movement skills in tight spaces. So he's got the movement skills to hang in man. He's going to be great on special teams. He got targeted 17 times last year, five completions allowed. He allowed 5 completions and had 3 interceptions. He almost had more interceptions than completions allowed. Straight line speed acts as a safety net over the top. He's also got good play diagnosis skills when he's in zone. It is a little bit odd that he took forever to actually get on the field as a cornerback. He was on the bench for Iowa State for years. It's a little bit suspicious. He's got a lot to learn when it comes to run support. Not really a good tackler yet. There's some indecisiveness. This is another guy who will make you think a little bit of Reek Woolen. He's really, really ultra talented, but there's a lot to teach. I ended up actually putting him up in my late 2nd round, I think. I like him a lot. I acknowledge that there is a little bit of that Reek Woolen boomer bust potential, but I think he's overall a better prospect physically than Reek Woolen was.
Yeah, I think I would put him into my 3rd round on this. I just, again, didn't put him on my deal, but I did have my notes put together for him. So I did like him a lot. His ability to change direction and flip his hips at the 6'4" size that he's at is very, very impressive. Good long speed. You mentioned the completions, which are just ridiculous, Brendan. I mean, that stat's not to be undersold. We have guys that we look at that have been targeted 60 times and given up 40 completions for 500 yards. So you really have got to put that in perspective, which is that the little bit of completions, 5 completions on 16 targets last year, it's not to be just kind of like a little stat you just kind of gloss over there. That's a huge one in comparison to the rest in this class. And older, already 24 years old, Brennan. I mean, he's going to be cooking his way to 25 years old. By the time he gets off this rookie contract, he'll be 28 years old. So that's the part of it. But the tape is just so good. The tape is so good in what he does in coverage and taking away the ball. It's hard to deny on that part. So I would probably, Brian, go with Porter over that. Williams will be the next guy we talk about in a second here. I've got 4th round, Parish a little bit later in the 4th round. I'm lighter on Quincy Riley than 2. I think he'd be the least of those guys, I think, on my list of guys.
Yeah, I have Null Williams coming up pretty soon here as well. Same for Quincy Riley. I did have Parish a little bit higher than you as a slot corner, but that may have been driven by the scarcity of the slot corner position this year. So sometimes it's really hard to separate yourself from the reality of the class.
Yeah. Great question there, Brian. I think it just speaks to the fact there's so many unique corners in this draft, but there's a lot of high upside guys too who you're not sure if they're going to get there, but they are promising a potential of that high upside where they're not just the boring Denzel Burke meat and potatoes kind of corner who will be just kind of like okay all the way around. There's some upside. There's ball skills. There's taking it away. There's freakish nature and length and size. You get some of that in this draft, which is kind of nice in some of the mixing of the good cornerback talent that we do have.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about that next guy. And thank you, Brian, for that donation that you just spoke upon. Null Williams out of California. I've never seen Noel spelled with no N-O-H-L, by the way. That's an unusual one for me. But Noel Williams, what are our thoughts on him?
I've been keeping an eye on him for a little bit here. He's got pretty good size, short arms, but good size. Not the most athletic guy in the world, but 7 interceptions last year. Big time ball skills. Finds his way to the ball over and over again. High level ball hawk. Experience playing man and zone and press. Not that he's going to be good at all of it necessarily, but he's got a lot of experience in different schemes. He's a physical player, plays with a good deal of physicality. Great feel for the game, reads well in zone when he's allowed to face the action and diagnose the play with his eyes, trusts his instincts, willing tackler. He's just not a very good athlete, and there's a little bit of a ceiling here because of that. I don't think his press is going to work in the NFL. I don't know if his man coverage will make it at the NFL either. It's something that he did in college. I don't know if he's going to be able to do it at the NFL. He's going to be a big-time flag magnet as well. There is some risk-reward with him. I kind of was thinking a little Brandon Browner with him, one of these corners that doesn't have great speed, doesn't have great athletic ability, but has a physical stature to make up for it with some elite ball hawking. Long as you leave him in zone, I think he's going to be really good, though. I think he could be maybe even worth a 3rd-round pick. I do end up kind of thinking 4th round with him, but I do like him.
Yeah, he's all right. I think some of the interceptions are a little overstated. He's had 14 picks in his career, but a lot of those picks are, like I was talking about earlier, with some of the guys that picks are true. You're turning around, you're making a play on the ball. With him, there's a lot of picks where it's overthrows and just bad, or it's a tip ball where he just happens to make the play on it. There's some where he's making true plays on the ball too, but if you look at like those 7 interceptions, you might think, well, am I getting a Deion Sanders 2.0 here? And saying, no, you're not. That's not who he is as a player. A lot of cover 3 bail dropping technique. There's mixing that in with the sticky press stuff that he was doing in addition, but a lot of just even in press dropping to depth, giving up some completions underneath. But because of that makes me think that they're a little bit worried to keep him into man at times and that they want to stay in zone, like you just said, a little bit. So I think he's a little bit restricted in the type of scheme that he can go to. So improved himself this year too as well. Gave up half as many yards in coverage as he did from the prior year. That's a big notable thing that I think should be taken into account. I think he gives you a relatively pretty good floor of ability play, but I don't think that there's very much of a ceiling on this guy, which is why I put him into more of the day 3.
Okay, I mean, I have him very close to day 3 as well, so I'm not far off.
Nope. All right, well, we've gotten finally to a Husky / Duck on this list. I'm interested to hear your opinion on this guy. We've been talking about him a little bit for a couple of years, but to see where you finally kind of land on him. I put him into the mid 4th round. He got a couple of years playing for the Huskies and then transferred out there to Oregon this past year. Jabar Mohamad.
Well, I'll tell you, he's tiny, very, very tiny. He's got the shortest arms ever measured for a corner over the last 26 years at the combine. He's got one of the worst verts ever for any corner at the combine. So we're not off to a very good start here. Let's just be real here, right? We're not off to the best of starts with this guy.
No.
The only real thing that you can say is that he makes a lot of plays on the ball. He's got like 28 passes broken up over the last 2 years. That's got to be right near the league lead. Now, some of that's because he does get targeted a lot, but he does a pretty good job holding his own. He's really good at the catch point. He's got great ball skills, and he's been successful on 3 different programs because before Washington, I think he was on a smaller school and he did pretty well there. Honestly, for the most part in college, he did a lot of like press and run rather than like just playing off. And there's no way this guy's going to be able to press in the NFL. He's tiny. There's just no chance. So I think he's going to have to slide inside and play nickel, which he didn't really do in college. In college, he was a outside press corner. He bites on fakes too aggressively. He's not a good tackler. And I don't think he's very cerebral, which is disappointing because he has so much experience. So I ended up actually putting him as a like late 7th round or UDFA guy. I just can't imagine a guy this deficient physically and athletically making it. Like he's got ball skills, but that's it. That's all he has. I don't see anything else here. And maybe ball skills can take you a long way, but I don't think they're taking you this far at all.
Yeah, my assessment was kind of absent of having to take a look at his arms being that short. I mean, that's noteworthy when they're that small. There's just nobody out on the outside making that go. And so you don't have any track record in playing in the slot, and that might kick him more down lower in the draft for me at that point because I hadn't realized his arms were that bad. It just didn't show up on tape as much where he's exposed for the lack of arm length like you'd expect at 28 inches. But 3-year starter, tremendous ball skills. He can play in every kind of coverage concept that you want, zone, man, off coverage, however you want to run it. He was able to do that. And so when you turn on the tape of the guy, he's getting the job done. But admittedly, heavily targeted a lot. Teams are trying to look to go after him. He allowed about a 50% catch rate, so he wasn't allowing a high amount of catches allowed to his way of things. Just gets the job done on tape, but I can't understate that the size limitation stuff is well worth noting on this side of it. Just gets it done, I guess, is part of why I put him where I put him. Just found a way to make it happen. You don't feel as much limitations on tape with him in that way, but I get it. I completely get it on that assessment of it.
Yeah, there's just I don't think there's anything here other than ball skills, and that's not enough.
It very well may not be, and there's a few corners operating with 29 inches arms on the outside. There's none that are operating with 28, and I just don't know if he's as much a guy if he gets kicked into side. Who, even if as much as I do like him, Brendan, I don't know if I see him being a guy who can be successful as a slot guy either. And that probably is where he is transitioning to.
Right.
All right, next guy up on my list here is Jacob Parish, Kansas State kid. You mentioned a slot is your outlook for him, I believe, a second ago.
Yes, that is correct. Let me pull up what I had on him. It is, okay, yeah, Kansas State, 21, small, so more of a slot corner, but he tested pretty well. 4.35 40 is really good. 1.5 110 yard split's good too. Big, broad. Pretty good production the last couple years. I think that he could be okay on the outside. I think he'll be better inside, but he does have a lot of experience playing outside. He could be passable there. Good ball skills, makes a lot of plays on the ball, moves nimbly when he's in open space, so I think he can hang in man coverage as well. Got good speed. He can protect deep. He's pretty good at not allowing players behind him. He's good at reading routes when he's in man. When he's in man coverage, he's pretty good at reading where the play is going. I do think bigger wideouts will be a problem for him. I don't think his change of direction is great, so I don't know how much of the man coverage stuff will translate. Doesn't really tackle well, not really much of a threat and run support. And I feel like he needs to react a little bit faster to stuff. His click and close is a little bit slow. So it's kind of frustrating that you have a slot corner that isn't much of a run supporter, because tackling is a big part of being a slot corner in the NFL these days. You really have to be willing to get involved because you're so close to the box. But I think he'll be great in coverage, and I think that he has an opportunity to get better as a tackler. So I ended up going late 3rd to early 4th, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I just wanted to see more consistency from his tape because when he shows it to you, you see it and it's really good. And then other times you don't see it and you feel like sometimes it's a lack of always having the effort at 100% ramped up. When it is ramped up, it's impressive and he can be a real physical, even for being a shorter corner, be very physical on the outside and get after it, and physical at the slot's good to have. And he can be a rugged defender as far as a tackler goes. But there's other times where he'll just get stuck on a block for kind of an extra beat and an extra second, allow himself to just get kind of hung up. Comeback routes, in cutting routes really can sometimes get caught flat-footed on those kind of routes. I thought at times he also likes to jam the receivers right at that level that's just at the line of 5 yards. It's not jam at the line of scrimmage. It's jam 5 yards into the route, right at where it's to 6 and 7 yards. Pretty heavily penalized last year with 7 penalties. I'd register to guess that there's quite a few of those that were him getting too long on the jam up the field at that point, trying to get away with it. I think the bigger type of receivers that have great ball skills, Mike Evans, Drake London, CeeDee Lamb, some of this is mitigated by playing on the inside, as you say, and I do agree that that's where he's got to go. Those guys are going to give him issues, I think, at times. Just lack of high-end ball skills, limited size. He's going to lose contested catch situations, I think. Now, again, mitigated by going in the slot, playing smaller receivers. But I did put him in the 4th round for this reason, as I think that he's kind of into that box.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I flirted with that as well.
Well, we're down the last couple guys here on my list. I know in this guy with Caleb Ransaw, he's listed as technically a safety, but when I went back and looked at his PFF numbers on this guy, Brennan, I just saw that he didn't play any actual real safety play. He was 302 snaps out of the slot last year, 350 snaps out of the slot the year before that, versus only 3 snaps out of the free safety position this last year. A little bit of used on the outside at times as a defensive lineman. So I saw this guy as kind of a slot corner. Did you see it in the same way with Caleb?
Yeah, I think he'll probably end up as like a big nickel. Not that he's huge or anything, but he's bigger than a typical nickel corner. I think he probably will end up there. He's a really good athlete, 4.43 speed, 40-inch vert, really, really impressive athlete. Great tackler, willing to get physical. At the minimum, you're going to get a great special teamer. Probably not enough of a natural mover to be good for man coverage. Click and close is a little delayed. Ball skills are a little lackluster in my book. He doesn't make a lot of plays on the ball. But I think he's got a chance. He could find a few different homes in the NFL. He could be, maybe he'll play safety in the pros. He didn't play safety in college a lot. Maybe he'll do it in the pros. I think he'll be a good big nickel. It's not out of the question. He could be okay outside, I guess. He's not tiny. I ended up putting him in the 4th round, and I actually felt like he was actually worthy of maybe even an early 4th round pick. I liked him.
I do too. He's a fun player, and I should have him maybe even higher on my board with it, especially with some of the testing that he gives you with the 4.33, the 1.52. You move that to safety. I mean, that's few guys moving that speed at safety. And really what's cool with them in Tulane, Brennan, is that they used him like a literal Sam linebacker at the edge of the line of scrimmage. I mean, he's the force edge defender down there like an LB. And that just speaks to how tough and strong he is as a tackler, how aggressive he was. Really sticky in coverage. Like you said, 10 receptions on 23 targets, 148 yards when aligned in that slot. I just think that was really, really impressive. And gives you some of that versatility, some of that upside. I don't think he can play on the outside, but I think either slot or safety, he's going to find a home somewhere there. And he'll be a really good player for you when he does. Probably why I should probably have him higher up than late 4th round where I currently have him sat. This is why we make those last minute adjustments, That's why it's right up to the last of the draft. You're moving guys around a little bit.
Right. So I like Caleb Ransaw. Not 100% sure what he'll do in the NFL, but he'll find something that he's good at.
He'll find something. He's too good, too ferocious of a player not to have a landing spot somewhere for him. Mm-hmm. All right, last guy for us on the list today, and this is a kid out of Nebraska. They tend to churn out a corner like once every 2 years, it seems like. Somebody's coming out of Nebraska. Tommy Hill.
Very interesting candidate here. 213 pounds. One of the heaviest corners the combine has ever seen. Very long arms, great length. So we have a unique profile here. But he's been pretty good for Nebraska the last couple of years. Very unique in how big he is. Great tackler. He's going to be a great weapon in run support. He's going to be really hard to deal with on that front. faster than you might expect. He's not fast, but for a guy who's one of the heaviest corners we've ever seen, he's a little bit better than I thought. He flips his hips really well. Nice, smooth flipping of the hips. He attacks the ball. Constant pest in making plays. Constantly around the ball. He's got high awareness of what's going on around him as well. Now, I wouldn't put him in man coverage. He's going to be out of his element. I don't think he reads the quarterback as well as he could. I think he could stand to maybe be a little bit better reading and diagnosing plays in zone. I know he was battling a lot of injuries last year, and that kind of didn't give a very good impression of him. So he's really fun. He does take some things off the table, but he puts some stuff on the table. I think as long as you keep him in zone, he'll be pretty good. So I ended up going 4th round on him initially. That's my first read.
Yeah, I think there's actually some similarities. Like you miss out on a Travis Hunter and you want a poor man's kind of version here. You can get kind of with this guy. I think your note too about the reading the quarterback size because he plays so much zone. If he did that, he'd have so many more interceptions because he got good ball skills. Former wide receiver, convert to the position. That stuff does stand out. But the fact that you don't, pay attention where the quarterback's going in zone at times with his eyes just doesn't let him to do as much as he could do. He's got a little bit of that Trey Brown skill where Trey could do this, where he's in off coverage. And he's got that method where the receiver's going to run the 9 route, and he's going to have that ability to find a way to put himself in front of the receiver and not allow him to be stacked because he kind of just always puts himself in, like you're going up the grocery aisle and you're about to go past somebody and they're looking, and then you're going to go past him and they kind of sense you're about to go past him and then they walk in front of you and you're like, dude, really? Like I walked all the way from the back of the aisle and you just started to move now. And he's that way where every time you think you're going to have a little pathway to get up and he's going to stay in front of you and not allow him to be stacked. I thought that really stood out for a guy in zone in that way. I think there's some upside with this guy as a recent convert to the position. I loved how he tackled being a former receiver. Those guys don't tend to be wrap and roll kind of players, which is what he does. He's like Hunter in a lot of ways to me, where in that zone, he can take 2 routes away in one. Stood out to me on a couple of his snaps in that way where he had quarterbacks just tentative. We're like, is he playing that guy? Or is he playing that guy? Oh, to hell with it. I'll go over here. And that part stood out with him. So I liked him a lot too. There's some upside that you could be getting with this kid in the 4th round.
Yeah. He's intriguing. He's unique. He's fun.
It's a lot of fun, especially in the 4th round. You don't always get this kind of upside. You're going through kind of picking through other deficiencies within what you might be getting on the plus side into day 3 on that. So very encouraging there with this guy. I like him. I wouldn't mind him at all. Mm-hmm. And that's my last guy I've got on my list here. Anybody else that you had that you want to speak to? I guess what? We got one more here. I missed out on this guy. Quincy Riley of Louisville.
Yeah, this is my last guy as well that I think is worth talking about. Let me make sure about that. Yeah, this is my last guy as well. Let's see here. What did I have here? So Louisville, 24 years old, decent size, decent arm length, decent speed. Good production the last couple of years, 25 passes broken up, which is really good. So he's going to be really good in zone. I think he's going to be a all-around good zone corner, good athlete, lots of experience in college. His coverage numbers were really good. 2023 got targeted 63 times and only allowed 23 completions, which is a pretty phenomenal rate. That's sub 40% completion percentage, I think. Very good at capitalizing on turnover opportunities. He's got some athletic potential to play in man. Could be good inside or outside. And this was one of the guys that had a great Senior Bowl, which is where I think the Seahawks really started to first notice him. And I believe they met with him. So there's some level of interest there. So he's not a very good tackler, needs to work on his run support. Not strong enough to consistently win press. Has to get more consistent overall to unlock his potential. I feel like the way he plays lacks confidence. He doesn't gun it when he makes his read, doesn't click and close fast enough. So there's a lot here that I do like. I would probably put him in about my 4th round. There's a lot that needs to be worked on as well, though. Like the tackling and run support's not good enough.
Yeah, he's a tough prospect for me, Brendan. He really is. First off, older, 24 years old. Another part is that he had to fight through injuries this year. And it seemed like 2023, he was on his way to being a day 2 guy. And then injuries this year seemed to have kind of limited him to a degree. I agree with you all, the ability that he's got to play, man press zone. He can do a lot of that type of stuff and be very comfortable all the way around, capable in all of that. That's probably why I'm sure Seattle's drawn to him a little bit. And overall, he is sticky in coverage. But this is a guy that's been playing college football since 2019. And not only did his tackling go backwards this year, but I thought his tackling was atrocious. And for a guy that's been playing this much college football, maybe it was the injury. That's the part that Seattle will have to make the assessment on, to be playing this much college football and to go backwards in this final year like that in that way. For a guy that's not a good cover enough guy to have that as a deficiency in his game, that got me a little bit colder on him. But I have to admit that maybe the injuries were the big kind of, the factor that was sort of causing this to get misaligned. And that once he gets back to full health, you're getting a day 2 guy into day 3 here.
Okay. Yeah. I think that deficiency does pull it down a lot. So I can get behind that. I like him a little more than you do, but I'm still not super gassed here.
Yeah, I think if he's a 22-year-old guy, I'd be a little bit happier with it, but I'm expecting a little bit more refinement. Most of the guys I look at 24 in this draft that we're looking at as good prospects have a bit of that refinement. They might have some athletic limitations or speed limitations, but they've at least done all they can to clean up their game to the ultimate degree. And with him, I feel like there's a lot more to still need to be cleaned up.
Right. Absolutely.
All right, well, we got Megan Gok-Roger, lady from Dan Enda, my lady from Dan Enda here in the chat. It's good to see you, Megan. Thank you for joining back up as a member here.
Hey, Megan, welcome back. Welcome back.
Appreciate you on that. Well, that is our list today, folks, for all of the cornerbacks here in the draft. A pretty good, healthy amount of cornerbacks. We have a lot of guys in our kind of 5th, 6th round, I think, range of things too, that it just didn't quite fit up to snuff, but we're trying to kind of concentrate on more of those day 1, 2, and early day 3 kind of cats. I do expect the Seahawks to probably take a corner somewhere in this draft, Brendan, and that it is a need. Last year of Woolen's deal, last year of Job's deal. You need some depth. You don't know what you have in Nehemiah Pritchett. Wouldn't even surprise me if they take 2 cornerbacks in this draft, as that's been a bit of the modus operandi of John Schneider in recent drafts. Yeah,
I'm open to just about anything, especially if Will Johnson is there at 18, which is becoming possible.
I think it's very much is rising and rising up. Jahdae Barron goes ahead. 3 quarterbacks go ahead. I think those two things alone push much more of the likelihood that he is going to be sitting there available to your Hawks there at 18 if those things do occur. And it's looking, I think, more and more potentially likely here. So I'd love it, man. I think he's going to be a good player. And we did this with Jackson Smith-Njigba. You have a guy go through the final year of his career. It's a final season of his college career, and it's injury. And teams get caught up in that, and teams get held up on that. And you go, oh, you guys are getting lost in the trees, despite the wood, forest, despite the trees, whatever. And it's not that difficult. This isn't that hard. And I see a lot of that this year, Brendan, don't you? With a lot of prospects in general, just people that are getting a little bit lost in too much almost information, and they're overcomplicating it on certain players where it's just not that complicated.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Again, I'm all about getting the best players possible. I don't really care where they play. I'll figure out the rest later. Give me the best players.
Just give me the best players. Let me build up the value. And that's how you build the best value, is take the best players when you come up and pick, which you can absolutely make the argument for that. Johnson's that guy at 18. Mm-hmm. Well, Brendan, I thank you as always, man, for doing all this and running through these prospects as we are. We've got 2 shows left for you folks. So we're coming back tomorrow on Wednesday. What are we doing? Is it safeties tomorrow?
Tomorrow is linebacker.
So we got linebackers.
Yeah. And I'm going to be perfectly honest. I don't think it's going to take too long. There are not a lot of high, really
good.
How should I put this? Yeah. Okay. I was going to try to find a better word, but that's actually the right word. There are not a lot of really intriguing linebackers. I can say for my part, I ended up with 6 guys in my first 4 rounds. We'll talk about a little bit more than that. Like, I don't want to do a show to talk about 6 guys. But I'm just going to tell you guys right now, it's not great.
It's a bad class, so it might be kind of a quick show on the linebackers. And likewise with the safety class too. Both of these last 2 position groups we're looking at, these are kind of the 2 of the leaner positional groups in this entire draft. So just not as much ground to cover. A lot of guys into day 3, especially late round 5, 6th round, 7th round. I mean, there's the litany of guys on both of these 2 positional groups. So we'll probably cover them pretty lightly and quickly here over the next couple of days when we do these shows.
Yeah, it's a good year to have Ernest Jones and Tyrese Knight under contract for the next 3 years.
It is, especially getting Ernest on that nice contract extension like they did, not having to overpay, because that's where you could have gotten trapped, is like, oh, it's a horrible draft. We got to pay him a little bit of extra to make this happen. And you didn't have to do that, which is good by John. Really good signing, good money on that deal.
Mm-hmm. All right.
So we're back to, and then folks, let you know, by the way, we'll be back on Monday. We're going to be doing a mock off just to attempt to present this, me and Brendan. So we're going to the last two positional groups Wednesday and Thursday here. And then we've got Monday, we're coming back with a mock off. We're going to go head to head. We're going to see who can do the best 7-round mock draft. And then we're going to have a poll. We're going to let you guys decide on it. So look forward to that, Brendan. Thank you for doing this. I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me on.
And we will be back soon, folks. But until next time, less than 24 hours away as we roll along, draft's a week away. You better be ready. You better be locked in. And if you're following these channels, you're doing just that. So do me a favor, hit the like button on both ends, maybe sub up on both ends, be it on Seahawks, Brendan Nelson, over here on the Hawks Nest, either way. We really appreciate you guys watching. We'll be back in less than 24 hours. But until that time, please don't you ever forget, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.